Welcome to Building the Business Behind Open Source AI. In this segment on open source AI monetization, we're joined by Joshua Drake, President and CTO of Command Prompt. With nearly 30 years in the Postgres community, Joshua has seen every major evolution in professional open source since its earliest days. He'll be sharing his perspective on open source survival, focusing on how commercial open source companies can scale their revenue while maintaining their community roots. JD, over to you.
Since this is an AI open source event, I have about 16 versions of these slides, all generated by prompt. I did not write this presentation. Now, I, of course, audited the presentation because AI is stupid. Okay, it doesn't act, it's not intelligent. So you do have to kind of pay attention to what you're putting out there. So this started, I went to Gemini and I said, Gemini, make my life easy. Write me a presentation that's, gives me all of the, how open source projects or companies can survive in the age of AI. I provided some context, some specific things I wanted, and it spit out this, frankly, gorgeous presentation. Okay, AI is very good at sexy, just not substance. And then I looked at it and I said, yeah, that's not me. So then I said, update with more natural and softer colors. And I don't know if AI went out and said, well, this guy's from Montana, so I'm going to put a bunch of mountain pictures and lakes and things like that, but that's actually what ended up happening. I don't know this for a fact, but I actually think that this background is a picture of the Yellowstone Falls in Yellowstone National Park. All right, this is me. That's, as you can tell, the picture is very current. That's myself with my bacon seedling. I'm not going to go through all of the list of this stuff. It's really here just because I knew we were being recorded. What I can tell you is that I am younger than free software, older than open source, and I have been doing this longer than Debian, longer than Red Hat. I used to sell 486 DX266 machines with 16 meg of RAM and 1 gig SCSI drives for $5K a pop on Usenet. That's how I got into this gig. All right, so let's talk about this. What are the risks and what can we achieve? I will note I am an interactive speaker. If you got something to say, something to ask, you cannot break me. Take your best shot. Okay, I've been doing this a long time. I once got fired as a partner from Sun Microsystems because I was invited to MySQL World by Monty to tell everybody what MySQL could learn from Postgres right after they got acquired by Sun. And when I told them, they weren't happy with me because it essentially was, it's open source. Do what you need to do. You don't need Sun. Sun wasn't very happy with that. But yeah, no, please ask anything. I'll answer you honestly, straightly, and as directly as I can. But we are talking about the digital bedrock, why open source development history matters in this. Because there are a lot of companies out there that are open source, but they're not open source. They pretend. Now, I'm not talking, now the code might be open source, but that's an open source product. It's not necessarily an open source project. They're very different things. History of agency for decades, there's been a commons, right? I mean, I know that Linux made it popular, but Linux wasn't first, right? Linux is just what it made it approachable. And everybody in here is running Linux. Everybody here. Somehow, some way. If you got an Android phone, like 80% of the world, that's Linux, right? But when we're talking about AI, we really need to remember the humanity. And that's what open source is about. Open source was a way for engineers who had inspiration to create art. They call it code, but it's art. And that is something that AI cannot do. It will never be able to. It doesn't have the emotional effect. It doesn't have the passion, the depression, the anger, the rage coding at 3 a.m., right? Anybody here as an engineer has had that, holy crap, I just woke up, I just solved the problem, and you are up for the next 18 hours writing the code for that. And look, I got so many people nodding in here, right? Your wife or your husband or your dog is like, please pay attention to me. And you're like, I cannot. And that is because you had passion and inspiration, something AI does not have. AI is a tool. It's also a disruptive force. We have not seen what is coming since the railroad. And remember, the railroad was actually a failure. They spent way more money, killed way more people, oppressed way more cultures to get that deployed than it ever came back to the original founders. That's coming now. Now, again, I'm not here to say don't use AI. I used AI for this presentation. I'm saying use it responsibly, because it is going to destroy entire workforce markets. And we have to understand that as people here, we're not going to be affected. Not really. I mean, we've read about all the layoffs. All those layoffs, they're all going to get new jobs. It might take a little bit, but it's going to happen. But Susie in customer service, that's gone. And it's happening already. And AI is not even ready for it. It's just that we're cheap. Conservation is important until it impacts your vision. How many times has anyone sat here and said, I will not compromise, only to compromise? We all know Google. Okay, I know we're in an AWS building, and don't smite me. Okay, but we all know Google. They used to have this great slogan, do no evil, until they realized that they can't do no evil. Why? Because it's subjective. And Google, generally speaking, is a very good company. I work with them all the time. They tried to do the right thing, right? But when it all comes down to it, most companies, most people think this way. Profit is the goal. And when profit is the goal, it will allow you to sacrifice what is right. Profit should be the reward. When profit is the reward, you do good, as a general rule. All right, let's talk about the key risk factors from AI. Extraction without attribution. Make no doubt, if you use AI, you are a thief. Again, I'm right here with you. I used stolen information to generate this presentation. Someone mentioned Claude, I also was paid by Anthropic because of a class action suit because they stole my book. I once wrote a book for O'Reilly and Associates. Okay? So we are sacrificing based on our inspiration, which is to grow these new products. Let's be honest, we're all doing it for what we think is good. Trying to make life better for everybody, trying to be more efficient, try to remove droning tasks. Right? I hate writing slides. This is why I went to Gemini. I don't mind writing the content, but I'm not a designer, right? I usually have that, my CEO loves creating the slides. I was like, I'm writing to talk about X, go, right? But that's a waste of her time. Model collapse. It's a feedback loop because AI trains on itself. And I have in practice, real problem here. We all know, if we pay any attention, that everybody loves all the data centers that are going in, right? Nobody has any complaints about the data centers, how those companies are stealing water, how they're increasing electricity rates for all these folks, right? How they're being built everywhere. Well, 25 miles from my house, and yes, I am off-grid in Montana, but 25 miles from my house, there's a little town that used to have a mill. Classic story, but it's got a lot of real estate and big buildings, and there's a private equity company trying to build a data center. And they're getting all kinds of pushback because of this. So I did a bunch of research on the data center. I did a bunch of research on the company, who the CEO is, who the private equity firm was. And I was able to do that because AI. Because I'm not going to take the time to find, use Google, or if I'm insane, Bing, to type in all the various things and do all the cross-referencing and all this to get this information. Google put it all together for me. I validated the information, and then I posted it on a subreddit. And then I said, okay, Google, now I need you to do more digging for me. And it started using what I posted immediately. So it was cycling through the information that it had already provided me to give me information that seemed more valid. But it wrote the original information that it provided. Security erosion, mass generated code can overwhelm human maintainers. We're starting to see this now. You read about it. This project just got a bunch of pull requests and they were all AI and all of this. It's irresponsible. Done responsibly, it's beautiful. I mean, think about all the security that we've had come through, security vulnerabilities that, had they been handled responsibly, would not have had that impact, but could have helped make better software. Legal dilution. This is a huge problem. We have a problem with derivative work if you're using copyleft. Anyone who here is a Python person might have heard of Charday. Charday is an old library, but it's license incompatible with Python, so it can't be included with the standard Python libraries. And so what the current maintainer did was use AI to completely green room it. Two problems with that. He continued to, you can do that. That's actually legal. They did the comparison and there's no original, like only 1% original code or similar code and all that type of stuff. And the AI even found places where the original software wasn't as performant as it could be and fixed that. But you can't call it Charday because Charday is copyrighted as part of that project. You got to change the name, Charday NG, something like that. But the other part of this is what happens, and this is going to happen, let's call it 3 years. What happens in 3 years, no offense, Microsoft, but I remember when you were a monopoly, when someone like Microsoft doesn't want to deal with Linux anymore, and they throw their AI at the Linux kernel, and completely rewrite it in Rust or C++ or Go or whatever, any hardware level language. It's 100% compatible and suddenly faster. And all of a sudden it removed all the cruft because Linux has been around since like 89, right? It's a modern Linux kernel versus a Linux in the modern day. What do we do then? What's key here is that AI doesn't learn, it regurgitates based on statistics. Preservation philosophies, AI is a tool. It's not a solution. Use it as a tool and it's awesome. If someone walks into your office and says, I have the solution, it's AI, kick them out. They don't know what they're talking about. It's a great tool. It's a great tool, but it's not a solution. Scalar is a solution that uses a tool that has AI in it. Nurturing human roots. This is how you can tell AI wrote this. New license frameworks are emerging that explicitly restrict the use of code in AI training sets without human-centered negotiation. Anyone knows me knows I did not write that. Okay, I did not. But it's true. The way we solve this problem with open source, the way that open source survives, is that you create new licenses where code has a required human element. Not that you can't use AI. Linux has already figured this out. Linus said, this is coming. I'm too old to fight it, right? But you need to own your code. I don't care if you use Claude or whatever to generate the code. You're owning that code. You are responsible for it. And that's what's going to need to happen, is that there's going to have to still, no matter what, the person with the inspiration, with the heart of art for that code must also, and we humans are great at this, take responsibility. Technologies for protection. Debian has actually been doing this for decades. Verification. Debian actually, when they go to conferences, they will not allow you to exchange GPT keys except in person. That is how you sign in Debian when you submit things through GPT. So we have to have proof of human contribution, signed origins, We got to know where the code comes from, right? If you don't know where it comes from, you don't know if you legally can use it. And now, we used to get away with it, right? I mean, I remember when TiVo basically just stole Linux so that they could run their little recording device. Cisco did similar things because there was no way to validate it or verify it. But now we have AI. And people are going to be like, I want to know what this is doing. And AI is going to break into it, scan the code, run some fuzzy match, and boom, copyright violation. And now with like Claude just announced, or Anthropic just announced their legal devices, you're going to be able to write an agent that does that and then says, got it, goes over to the legal thing, files the brief, and an attorney signs off on it from LegalZoom in 15 minutes for $4.99, and it gets filed in the court. So we got to have the verification, the signed origins, and the governance. You've got to have humans in the loop. We are nowhere near the idea of Wall-E, if anybody's seen that movie. Okay, we're just not, now it's coming. I'm fat like they are, okay? But it's just a reality. We're not there yet, and hopefully we never get there, because that's a sad existence. We are meant to have purpose and passion. Blatant AI generated graph with dates in the past. I just left it in here because I thought it was funny. Embracing hybrid evolution. This is another AI-driven paragraph. Survival is not rejection. We can embrace AI to automate the mundane. This is actually where AI is great right now. Documentation. I actually was able to tell Gemini, please watch this video and create a slide deck from the video. And what the video was a podcast that I run. So I was able to create a presentation from one of my podcast episodes. I didn't have to deal with that. That is awesome. I don't have the time, the energy, and frankly, it's gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, it's just not worth it. I mean, the presentation would be worth it, but doing the work to get that presentation is not worth it. So AI is great for that. But we got to reserve the high ground, the throne, whatever you want to call it, for the human beings, because that's where the inspiration is going to come from. Remember, all AI is the result of everything that we've done over the last 75 years. Then everything we did before that, because it was out of copyright, so they scanned it in. But that's what it is. It's a statistical model to make a decision based on what we built. Roadmap for resilience. This is true. The numbers were wrong until I did actually audit this slide. We need to audit the licenses, all of them. We need to make them human-centric, but still conform to open source. AI is not a human. We need to deploy signing. If you are using, we've had two people in here talk about the Fortune 500 and all the rules. I'm going to scare the hell out of Fortune 500. They don't know any of the code that they're running. None of it. Do you think Red Hat actually goes line by line through every single piece of code they ship? No. They run unit tests. If it passes, they package and go. We have entire industries that are built to keep our world somewhat sane. I know it doesn't always feel that way. That don't even know what they're running. AI governance, this is happening. Either the industry does it or the government does it. The government will be bad at it. The industry will be bad at it. But the industry will be better at it than the government. Why? Because the government wants compliance, the industry wants profit. And if we have profit, we have acceleration. 2030 total ecosystem. I believe I am going to be 53 in a week. Okay? So in 4 years, it'll be 2030. I believe by the time I am 63, it will get to the point where everybody in average society will be in a science fiction movie from the 1980s. You will walk into a room, illuminate. Lights will come up. Play Barry White. My wife's coming home. Right? All that's going to happen. And it's going to be flawless if we do the things that we already talked about, because there will be a throat to choke and a chain of accountability. If we don't have the chain of accountability, anybody's going to be able to walk into your house and say, Alexa, buy. That's why there is no Alexa in my house. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD.